Hey everyone. So today I wanted to go over just investing. One of the many topics I'll talk about in this channel. So I wanted to go over one of my favorite perspectives I have on investing. So let's get into it. So one of my favorite ways to just think about investing is just waiting to collect. So you're just waiting. So one of my favorite quotes is from actually Chris Rock, the comedian, and this is actually kind of inspiration from him. So his quote just kind of goes like, and this is like as a comedian, but it makes sense. So he says, um, "You make money during the day as a comedian during the day, and then and you just collect it at night." At night. Okay, so what does this mean? So as a comedian, you're practicing during the day, you're writing down a whole bunch of jokes, right? You're maybe practicing in front of a mirror, um, where you're just practicing, you're kind of going off, um, and you are just getting good. Like you're going over everything as you can as a comedian. And it's not until when you're on stage. What is this, a microphone? Yeah, sure. Let's call this a microphone. Where you hear the jokes and the laughs, and people are having a great time. The crowd is going crazy. You know what I mean? So this is what he's talking about, where he says, as a comedian, you make money during the day practicing. Like this is the daytime day, and then you just collect it at night when you realize what you did during the day. Okay. So this is kind of how I think of investing is you basically like make your money doing the boring stuff, like establishing a routine either monthly or by paycheck every 2 weeks or weekly, like whatever your routine is, or your joint routine, like with your partner and your spouse. That is like the boring day stuff, like nobody watches that, but then you collect it at night supposedly, or like when it's time to actually like realize the benefits of saving and investing. Okay, so I wanted to go over just like a couple examples of what this looks like, waiting to collect, and then just like making it kind of boring, honestly, just doing kind of the mundane, but then the results are definitely not mundane. So the first one I wanted to go over is just an example. So $200 per month at 7% interest rate. So if you're kind of new to investing, um, stay tuned during the channel. I'll introduce some good ideas on how to like start investing, because you could be thinking like, what the heck? How do I get 7%? Like I'm just putting my money in the bank and it doesn't make anything. It's like 0.1% or something. Okay, so that's okay. So I am going to write out a couple dates. Okay, so I'm writing out these ages just based off of when you start investing. So this is when you're either 68 years old, 50, 48, 38, 28, 18. Okay, so I'm going to try and have it make sense in a second. Okay, so um, so let's say after 10 years, you invest $200 a month, which is $100 a paycheck if you get paid around twice a month, and you're getting 7% returns. So this would look like 40K, 40,000, 104,000, 243,000, then 524,000, and finally 1.1 million. So as you can see, the rate of this gets pretty exponential, right? Oh, I should have freaking connected. Okay, so I'll do it better on the next one. So why I put this is if you started at 18 years old, you will collect 1.1 million by the time you are 68, right? So if you start at 68, you're going to have zero when you turn 68, right? So if you start at 58 years old, you're going to collect 40,000 by the time you're 68. Okay, so that's kind of what these mean. That's why I put it backwards, was to show that, like, if you literally just do this, invest $200 a month into something that gives you 7%, you will collect 1.1 million by the time you are 68 if you start at 18. If you start at 28, you'll collect $524,000. If you start at 38, you'll collect $243,000 by the time you are 68. If you start at 48, you will collect $104,000. And if you start at 58, you will collect $40,000 by the time you turn 68. Okay, and that's like kind of retirement age or whatever, right? I know some people may not be retiring around then, but that's just kind of what I wanted to go over. Okay, so let's go over another example. So this is, a modest 7%, $200 a month. Okay, and also don't be, don't be sad, don't be down if you are definitely not 18 anymore. I myself am not. I wish I was, or else I would do so many things differently. But let's just go over another example. So now let's just say $200 a month at 10-ish%. Okay, so you remember this final number was 1.1 million. So let's go over what it is at 10%. So, oh, excuse me, this one is 40,000. And I'm gonna do it a little higher. This one was 40,000. Last one was 34,000. Sorry, I looked at the wrong note. Now it's 150,000. Excuse me, 150,000 in 20 years. 450,000. 1.2 million. This is already past what the 1.1 million was after 50 years. And we have freaking 3.4 million. Okay, so let's go over this again. So 40,000, 150,000, 450,000, 1.2 million, 3.4. Okay, so let's go over what all this means again. I wish I did it better so it was more exponential, which this is, by the way. So again, if you start at 18 years old, investing $200 a month, which is $100 a paycheck, at 10%, you will collect $3.4 million by the time you turn 68. So 50 years, okay? So I'm just going to write 10 years, 20 years, 30 year, 40 year, and then 50-year timeline, okay? So again, most of you may not be 18, which is fine, because if you have a 40-year time horizon, you will collect 1.2 million. So this is cool because it took us, in the last example at 7%, it took us 50 years to get 1.1 million. But in this example, it only took us 40 years to get 1.2. So that's awesome. 30 years to get 450,000, 20 years to get 150,000 and 10 years to get 40,000. And again, sorry, the last example was 34,000. But again, so if you start at 18, you'll have 3.4. If you start at 28, you'll have 1.2 by the time you're 68. If you start at 38, you'll have 450,000 by the time you're 68, and so on. Okay, so this just goes to show that it's never too late. Like 40,000 is still an awesome amount to have saved. Okay, so don't feel bad if you are 58. Okay, like you got to be aggressive. You got to really fight for the principal that you're investing as well. It's just like maintaining the growth rate as well. But it's okay wherever you are, even if you're 68. There's still things that we can do. Okay, there's still time. But if you're 18 or 28 or even 38, like these are like just young people. Okay, so and they have a lot of time, and it's only $200 a month, by the way. So like $200 a month is $100 per paycheck. I was doing that when I was 20, 21, 22, living in my parents' basement while I was going to college. I was paying for everything in college. I only got a couple scholarships. I was working, getting like $14 an hour or whatever to $18 an hour while I was in college, right? And I was working hard, and I was doing more than this actually. I was doing probably about $200 per paycheck. Even though I was paying for school, I was paying a little bit of rent to my parents, and I was paying, of course, my own bills and stuff. So this is a very feasible number. And now, of course, as a professional, I'm in my career. Like $200 a month is nothing, especially if, well, not nothing. I didn't mean to say that, but it's, I built up the muscle of like $200 a month is not that bad. $200 a month is not that bad. So now that I'm looking this number in the face, I'm like, oh yeah, $100 a paycheck. Like I want to invest way more than that. This is especially doable if you have an employer match. So if you're working at a company that does retirement and it doesn't match, if you're making like, let's say $50,000, and you get, let's say, like a 3 to a 5% match, that's still very significant. That's about this number, right? Or even more. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Let's just go over one more example. And this time we're going to edit the amount that we put in. So $300. Oh, $300 a month at 10%. Okay, so now it's going to be 61,000 at 10 years. It's going to be, wow, 227,000 at 20 years. Okay, which is an awesome number. 678,000 at 30 years. Wow, 1.9 million at 40 years. And 5.2 million at 50 years. Holy freaking crap. And this is just going to take off. Okay. So this is where waiting to collect. So like just wait. So again, literally all you have to do is invest $300 a month, which is $150 a paycheck. Literally just $50 a paycheck more than our last example. 10% on average. It's not going to be 10% every year. Sometimes it may be 8, sometimes it may be 24, sometimes it may be 17, sometimes it may be 1. Okay, but on average, 10%. And this is something that we can more or less expect just because that's what we've seen for the last decade or so. But again, waiting to collect. It's not like this huge number that like you have to work for and you have to do a whole bunch. Like this is actually just you do this at this rate and you're literally just waiting to collect. Okay, so back to the example, 61,000, 227,000, 678,000, 1.9 million, and 5.2 million after 50 years. So just let this sink in. Hope this helps. And